Hello, and welcome to a look at High Steel for the Amiga, a game that was released by Addicta as part of a series of games that was supposedly meant to be for the entire family. In High Steel, you play the role of a builder, and your job is to build a certain amount of floors in order to progress through the levels. As you can probably gather by now, this is considered to be a puzzler, and while the puzzles themselves aren't horribly complicated, the other things that are involved in the gameplay makes it rather complicated. You have a supply crane that at regular intervals will drop off supplies, and you have to put down girders in order to have a foundation to put the bricks on, and then place the bricks on top of the girders. And once you have 5 girders with bricks on, or 5 flooring pieces, whatever, that is considered to be a floor. So as you can gather, when you progress through the levels, you have to build more and more floors. You have to do that repeatedly. Now our builder friend can climb up and down the girders, and he can climb up and down the girders holding bricks, but he cannot climb up and down the girders holding girders. So you have to make sure that in order to build more than one floor, to cover the area where the crane will drop off the girders, so the girder is placed on the higher floor. Obviously, if you that's all you were doing, then you could probably beat this game 10 times over. So certain annoyances, nuisances has to be present, and they are in the shape of various different enemies. Those small blobby things apparently are gremlins. What do I know? The gremlins, the blobby things, they are not much of an issue. When they drop down from high, they can break through a floor. But outside of that, they are not posing much of a threat. You will start getting other monsters that, or enemies, whatever, that if you walk into them, they will kill you, or they will start spitting acid at you, and all sorts of other interesting things. One thing to be said about those gremlin things is the fact that our builder can throw his spanner at enemies, but if you do that against gremlins, it will be reflected and hit the builder, of course, causing him to lose a life. That can become an issue once you have multiple enemies on in the same area, like that big green blob. If you want to throw the spanner at that, and one of the gremlins land down in front of it, then of course the spanner will be reflected, causing you to lose a life. A point that can be rather frustrating. Now, from a graphical point of view, this game is not the most epic looking game ever devised, I suppose, but you know what, I've seen worse. I've seen a lot worse, and I think most people who either played Amiga games or watch videos on this channel can agree to that. It's not epic, but it's not horrible either. The sound design is a bit bleh, I suppose, but I mean the title music is interesting in the fact that it's a somewhat a better rendition is being used as title music for another game, which I may get around to cover. I don't know. The rest of the sounds are perhaps a bit basic, but you know what? I'm prepared to tolerate it for what it is. The gameplay, which of course is the most important thing of any game, is acceptable. It's not. I mean, it's actually not that challenging as a puzzle. It's relatively easy to work out what you're supposed to be doing, and it is relatively easy to do it as such. If it wasn't because of the enemies, of course. Now, what was it that drew my attention to this game? It wasn't the graphics, it wasn't the sound, and it wasn't the gameplay, because everything is perfectly acceptable, but not much more than that. What drew my attention to this game is the fact that it was absolutely shot to hell by most publications back in the day. It got ratings as low as 17%. I think the average ended up at about 24. Comments like being a cheap game was no excuse. This game was released at £4.99, by the way. £4.99, I should say. And the graphics were called outright ugly and all sorts of other things, which I will not agree with. I don't think it's ugly. I think it's perhaps not pretty, but it's definitely not ugly. I have seen ugly, and I have seen worse than ugly. I've seen ugly so ugly that ugly felt embarrassed by it. And this game does not belong in that category. The thing is, while simple and while annoying and while frustrating, which it can be because it can be outright annoying when you climb up a girder and one of the gremlins fall down, it will knock you off the girder and of course cause you to lose a life that way. The completely random dropping down of the enemies, and you can walk alongside a floor and then suddenly one of the green blobbers pop up and kill you. If you look at other games for the Amiga, Outrun is such a good example. It was a game that was overhyped to high heaven, and a game that was probably 3 to 4 times more expensive than this game. But I had more fun playing this game than I had fun playing Outrun, and ultimately that is where the value rating lies for any game. How much did you enjoy it? It doesn't matter what anyone else say. Ultimately, these videos are just my opinions on what I think about different games, and I'm not trying to tell you how to think or tell you how to feel. If I love a game that you find absolutely rubbish and you know it, that's perfectly okay. And on the other hand, if I dislike a game that you love to high heaven, then why not? I mean, just love it. Be proud of that. Be happy with that. Whatever. I'm not trying to take anything away from anyone. I'm here to make videos and give my opinions of the games that I cover. And when it comes to High Steel, it's not necessarily a game I could see myself playing again, perhaps. Definitely not consistently. I'm not a puzzle fan to begin with, and those few puzzles that I do enjoy playing has to really catch me and enthrall me, whatever you call it, enchant me, whatever. And this game does not necessarily have the ability to do so. But of course, because I mean, like making a 30 seconds video saying, "Oh, this game sucks," is no use to anyone. So I had to gather a certain amount of footage in order to create a video. And to be honest, I didn't hate doing it. I might not have loved it, but I definitely didn't hate it. So the thing is, and that is something that I think is a pain point, because reading reviews and watching videos and things like that of games before you buy them is one thing. But when the reviewers are unreliable, then what are you supposed to be doing? I have seen so many games being rated extremely highly, and I've been playing them and I've been thinking, what the hell were they thinking? Who paid them to give this game a good review? It's a horrible implication, but you know what? Often it just feels like, okay, this reviewer is afraid of pissing off Ocean, so that game is going to get a good review, even though it stinks to high heaven. It is a bit naughty to imply that, but I mean, everyone was saying it because it was definitely a thing that was suspiciously present. that you had games that didn't even qualify as being playable, getting review scores in the 80s and 90s. This game is definitely not great, but it's not as bad as the official press tried to make it, and that is my opinion. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye for now.